Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I have another interesting weekend project for you guys. This time we're going to build our own Game & Watch retro gaming handheld. In this red box, I have an old Huawei phone, and let me show you what's inside. Ta-da! We have Western Bar. Yes, it's none other than the famous Casio handheld game back in the 80s. In this video, I'm going to show you a bunch of Android apps to install on your Android phone to make it into an LCD retro gaming handheld device. You're going to have cool games from Radio Shack, Nintendo Game & Watch, Elektronika, Gakken, Tronica, and much more. The first game we have here is Kung Fu by Casio back in 1984. You can deliver punches and kicks with the buttons on the left and the D-pad on the right. To execute a flying kick, push the D-pad upwards and hit the kick button. There's no block function like Street Fighter, but you can dodge your opponent blows simply by moving to the other side of the screen. The gameplay is pretty good for its time, and who doesn't like Kung Fu? In the same year, Casio released its most famous LCD game called Western Bar. The game is straightforward. You are a drunken sheriff shooting bottles and drinks that are being slided over the bar top. You have to avoid objects that are being thrown at you by the other patrons, and you do need to shoot the drinks before they fall off the tabletop. After shooting 20 drinks, you hear the bandit entering, and just like in the cowboy movies, the classic showdown begins. Back in the day, a classmate brought this handheld to school and another one brought the Kung Fu game. There's kind of a climax in this game, unlike Kung Fu, so everyone's talking about it at school. Two years later, in 1986, Casio released the SL Bankman. The objective of the game is to operate the train to collect money bags on the stations. You control the rail with the point button on the left and the speed of the train with the button on the right. This game is not as popular as the other ones. I remember there's only one kid in my neighborhood who has this handheld. Nevertheless, it has its appeal to kids who like train sets. A year later, in 1987, Casio released Heli Battle. In this game, you control a helicopter which drops bombs and shoots missiles. There are 3 stages. In the first stage, your base is under attack. So you need to shoot down the enemy choppers before they destroy all your hideouts. Once you lose all 4 hideouts, the game is over. In the second stage, you are battling your way across the border to the enemy's base. You need to defeat the enemy choppers and tanks that are trying to take you down. In the last stage, you will destroy all 4 hideouts of the enemy to win the Heli Battle. Personally, I find this game to be the best one. I know many will disagree and argue that Western Bar is better. Well, I'm a big fan of the Airwolf TV series, and back in the day, this is the closest thing to piloting an Airwolf attack helicopter. Now let's take a look at Nintendo Game & Watch collection. The first one here is called Fire. For the Android app, it's called Fireman due to copyright reason. The game is self-explanatory. Basically, you control the position of the stretcher to bounce the falling victim from the building to the safety of the ambulance. Next, we have the Yukio version. It is the same game of Fire, but the cast and setting are based on the Edo Japanese era. Next up is a juggling game called Ball. The app is called Juggler Boy due to copyright reason. For starters, this game is harder than it looks. Next up, we have a memory game called Fragment. The app is called Flag Boy for copyright reason. You need to memorize numbers that are flagged up and then enter them with the 4 buttons within the given time button. Next up is a game called Fire Attack. The app is called Rome Burning due to copyright reason. The objective is to put out the fire bombs which are thrown at the building from 4 different directions. Next up is Manhole. The app is called GWM3 due to copyright reason. The game is self-explanatory. Basically, you got to cover the manholes to prevent Mario and Luigi from falling in. Next up, we have Popeye. This is a high-quality reproduction of the original. You control Popeye the sailor to collect all the falling goodies and avoid being hammered by Bruto on the left. Next up is another classic called Octopus. Dive in the ocean to pick up the loot from the treasure box, but watch out for the tentacles of Mr. Octopus when making your way back to the boat. Next up we have another classic called Parachute. Use the boat to pick up troopers who are parachuting down from the Chinook. This game gets addictive as the speed increases. Next up is Mickey Mouse. The app features the big bad wolf instead of Mickey, but the game is exactly the same as the original. Pick up all the rolling eggs at the barn from the 4 hands. Next up we have a modern remake of Turtle Bridge. This app retains the gameplay but replaces the flickering animation with smooth motion, and it includes a great soundtrack. Next up is Mario Cement Factory. In this game, Mario needs to dispense the cement into the cement trucks. If any of the 4 dispensers gets overfilled, or if you fall off the elevator, the game is over. This is a challenging game and requires some time to master the pattern of the game mechanics. The next one is Donkey Kong. This is a game and watch with 2 screens to double the fun. The objective is to defeat Kong the gorilla. Avoid getting hit by the rocks thrown by him as you make your way up the ramp to the crane switch. At this point, I jumped too early and I missed the swinging hook. The objective is to jump onto the hook and then undo the ledge to the sky bridge to send Kong falling to his demise. Next we have Donkey Kong 2. It's a different story this time. The objective of the game is for Junior Kong to rescue his father who is in captivity. He needs to get the key to each padlock to unlock them one by one. While making his way up, he needs to jump over sparks on the electrical cable and avoid getting hit by the birds. Next up is Greenhouse. In the greenhouse, you will exterminate the creepy crawlies which are eating up your crops. This is a simple and fun game. The 2 screens make a nice view of the 2-story greenhouse. The next classic is Mario Bros. This is again a 2-screen display and there's a lot of detail to look at. You gotta constantly look back and forth the 2 screens to play this game. The objective is for the 2 Mario brothers to deliver the crates of bottles to the truck across 11 conveyor belts. They need to make sure nothing falls off those belts. This is a tough game and takes some time to master. Now let's look at the Russian Game & Watch collection. The first one is Wolf and Egg game. This is the same game as Mickey Mouse. Now it's interesting how the game developer adds shadows in the background to mimic the actual screen. They had overdone it as the shadows make the screen look terrible. The next Russian Game & Watch is Hunter and Ducks. The 4 buttons control is similar. The ducks are coming in from 4 directions, so be sure to position your rifle to aim at the nearest incoming duck. Next up is Space Bridge. This has a similar gameplay like the Game & Watch Fire, but this time it uses the space platform to bounce a falling astronaut from the left to the right until he reaches the safety of the space rover. Next we have Space Flight. Again we have the 4 buttons control, but this time we use it to gun down the relentless incoming UFOs coming in from 4 different directions. Just like the Game & Watch parachute, the game does get addictive as it picks up speed. Here's a Need for Speed Russian game called Auto Slalom. I like how the race is displayed in an isometric view instead of the usual first-person view. So much for the Russian collection. Now let's take a look at some new games which are homage to the Nintendo Game & Watch. The first homage is called Alice Game & Watch, and the gameplay is to serve the lady her favorite wine while avoiding projectiles from the genie in the flying Pandora box. This game is called Carry. As the name suggests, you will carry the luggages to the truck while avoiding getting hit by the airstrike. Now if you think Carry is an easy game, try this game called Mr. Coconut. Now try to dodge the coconuts thrown at you from 4 monkeys. Now this is a tough game. Next we have Banana Monkey Brothers. In this game you are playing as the monkey, and the objective is to dodge the stones thrown by the human and to grab the bananas on the bottom left to feed your baby. Next we have the Jasotech collection of 3 games. The first in this collection is Letter Shoot. In this game there are 4 gaps in the pipes, and you are required to fill up the gaps according to where the letter roll is going. The second game in the collection is Power Racer. This is definitely a homage to old school LCD car racing handhelds. The third game is Coconut Joe. In this game, Joe has a monkey friend to help him pluck the coconuts. He needs to collect all the coconuts as the monkey throws them down to him. Next up is Sink. This is a homage by Plunder Bros. As the name suggests, the ship is sinking and you got to save everyone by ferrying them to safety. Next we have the Pocket Games collection, which has 2 homage games. The first one is Meteor Run. Dodge the falling meteors, but don't just look upward. Watch out for the sandworms under your feet. The second game in this collection is Sheep. It's similar to the Game & Watch Lion, but instead of fending the lion, you are fending off sheep that are coming for your flowers. Next we have the Makai Game & Watch collection, which has 9 cute games. The first one is Kaiju, and the gameplay is similar to the Game & Watch Manhole. The objective is to control Kaiju to allow his little friend to cross the streams. The second game is Dosan's Escape. Dosan is a cute sea elephant-like creature, and he needs to dodge the attacks from the samurai robot. to unite with his lover on the right. The next game is Peon Shopping. This is a mathematics game. Peon has to shop carefully to match the amount of gold given to him in a given time period. The next game in the collection is Imomu's Night. Imomu the caterpillar is having a night out. She needs to avoid being spotted by the searchlights of the garden guardians. The next game in the collection is Tanden's Boat. Use the Tanden's Boat to pick up comrades parachuting down from the flying Viking ship and ferry them to the shores. The gameplay is similar to the Game & Watch Parachute, but with a dose of cuteness. The next game in the collection is Bard's Tower. The objective of the game is to allow only allies to cross the tower's bridge or to enter the tower's roof. Those carrying swords are enemies and they should be stopped from entering the tower. The next game in the collection is Nettie's Shoe. In this game, the adult Netties will use the shoe to fend off the sea monsters to protect the younglings on the shores. Again, this is similar to the Game & Watch Lion or the Pocket Games Ship. The next game is Dosan 3. This time we see the true family of Dosan. Dosan needs to collect all the hearts from his lover and dodge the attacks from the bat. The last game in the Makai Game & Watch is Amen. In this game, Amen the peacock needs to cross the diabolical bridge to fetch flowers from the opposite side for his lover. He needs to watch out for explosives that blow up the bridge while making the way across. Next up is a Spanish homage called Invitación Boda or Wedding Invitation. The bridegroom Carlos has to pick up the wedding ring and bring it to the chapel. He needs to avoid the notorious drunkard, the annoying trumpet man, and the nasty paparazzi on the way to the chapel. Next we have Earthworm Jim. Oh, just kidding, it's Earthworm Joe. This is a pretty good homage with a catchy title. You play as Joe the Earthworm, who has to cross the wetlands and river to get home. He has to avoid the hungry birds at all costs. The next homage is called Office Drone. This is an interesting one with a modern storyline. The objective of the game is to multitask between 3 PCs. On the right there's Twitter and in the middle there's Facebook. While tweeting and replying on Facebook, be ready to show up at your work PC on the left when the boss shows up. However, if you neglect your friends on Facebook and Twitter for too long, you will lose the game as well. Next, it's time to look at some rare LCD handheld games. Here we have Plane and Tank from Radio Shack. The handheld is a classic and it is cool to have it on our device. The gameplay is simple. Get your tank across the bridge while avoiding the airstrikes. The second collection from Radio Shack is Highway. This is a classic car game just like Outrun, and it definitely has to be in our collection. Next up we have another great handheld from Q&Q. This is Treasure Island. The objective is to pick the key and enter the hut when you are moving from left to right, and when moving from right to left you gotta drop the bomb at the private hideout in the middle. After a hideout is destroyed, the raft appears and you can then bring the treasure chest to your ship. Avoid the enemies to survive. This is a game with an interesting gameplay. Next we have a really cool LCD handheld from Clandestine. This is Spooky Mansion. a unique RPG. You roleplay as a dude with a chainsaw entering a mansion in search for an item. Although the sprites are repeated, it is cleverly done to display a different look and feel. It's amazing how many scenes there are. Fortunately, the attacking bats are no match for the chainsaw. After locating the item in the basement, it's time to escape. It's a great handheld to have in our collection. Next we have another mansion game. It's the super rare mystery mansion from Epoch. Although there's only one scene in this game, it's packed with lots of character. The princess has been turned into a toad and locked in a cell. You play as a brave boy who will overcome a magic broom, a lamp spirit, a poisonous spider, and the wicked witch to get the keys to unlock the cell to save the princess. Next we have Supper Time by Somi Pally. You are the voodoo priest and your job is to make supper ready by filling the cauldron with spices collected from the dangerous purple jungle. Step over snakes and jump to collect the herbs, and watch out for the spiders too. Next we have another game by Q&Q. This is Caveman. The objective of the Caveman game is to catch the flame and then enter the cave when the door is open. Beware of the dinosaurs and the prehistoric sea creature. Next we have Tronica games. The first one is Arrow Gunfield. Well, this is the modern remake, so the screen doesn't look quite like the original. However, the gameplay is still the same. The next Tronica game is Thief in the Garden. This is a remake of the original and the gameplay has been simplified to only 3 buttons. The objective is to reach the exit by avoiding dogs, guards, and electronic surveillance. Last but not least, we have Gakken games. The first one here is Trojan Horse. The gameplay is quite straightforward. Among soldiers rushing into the castle, only allow your own soldiers inside by lowering the drawbridge or letting enemies fall into the moat. When the Trojan horse appears, soldiers will try to enter the castle from the horse's neck. Attack only enemy soldiers with the spear. This is a rare handheld and it now costs about 75 euros on eBay. The second Gakken game is Runaway. The objective of the game is for the prisoner to escape from his cell. You must avoid patrolling guards and the searchlight before finally breaking a brick wall to make a runaway. The third Gakken game is Fishing Boy. Now the piranhas are hungry and you need to catch them with your fishing lines before they escape. By the way, this is the last game on our device. I'll post the download links in the video description below. For some of the downloaded games, their extension is XAPK. To install XAPK, you will first need to install an app called APK Pure. Next, open File Manager and browse for the XAPK file. Here I'm at the location where the XAPK file is located. I'm going to install Greenhouse by tapping on it. And install again. So basically XAPK will have a couple of executables inside. It's not just one APK, there are several APKs inside compressed file. Therefore, you need to use this APK Pure app to install it. Thank you so much for staying till this part of the video. It has been a long one and I hope you like the content. Basically, I'm very pleased with this handheld retro gaming device that we have created. That's all I have, and I will see you in the next one.